Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first episode of 2020 of Mark's Side. I'm sorry,
Nope,
2021 of Mark's
We're not going back to that year.
Mark's Side of the Ring. I am your host.
We're live, pal.
Miguel Minetti, alongside my two co-hosts. Happy New Year's, gentlemen, Fred DeCourt and Nick Fiorentino. What's going on, brothers?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I can't believe I said 2020, the year that we all want to forget for sure. It's 2021. We're talking some wrestling. I'm excited. I hope you two are. Hope you guys had a wonderful holiday season. Hope all of our viewers, of course, at home did as well, too. We're ready to jump on in, right? Talk about some wrestling. But, of course, as tradition goes, gentlemen, Nick, you first, my friend. What are you drinking? And I know you got something there with you.
Well, first, happy and healthy 2021, not 2020. And 2021 starts off with the bang. The New York Mets, Francisco Lindor and Carlos Carrasco are New York Mets, which is why I'm wearing my New York Mets stuff on today. I had to give a shout out. I did want to show up in all Eagles stuff to troll Miguel, but the Mets take the headlines and onward and upward into 2021. But what I'm drinking tonight is the new Michelob Ultra Organic Seltzer. Everybody and their mother has come out with a seltzer saying thanks to White Claw. And this one's actually pretty good. It is cucumber and lime. So I figured I'd give it a shot, have to educate myself. I call it doing homework so I can recommend it to my customers. But, it is what it is.
Well, we don't want to hear all night about your seltzers, Nick. Thanks for sharing. And what a terrible Mets jersey. Fred, what are you drinking, buddy?
I'm back to the tried and true Screwball. I don't know what I'm going to do when the bottle's done. I'm going to have to get another one. But
that's become your signature.
It has. I've had this bottle, and every week I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to go for that.
I like the commitment, brother. I like the commitment. So, obviously, we have a really exciting episode today. We're here to talk about a lot. The big topic of the day, of course, is this past week on Monday Night Raw for two big reasons. First and foremost, it was the Legends Night. So we did see a lot of past Attitude Era and before and after era superstars make the return to Monday Night Raw for some backstage segments, which we'll talk about. But at the very end, after a really, in my opinion, a fantastic WWE Championship match between Drew McIntyre and Keith Lee, we saw Drew McIntyre come out on the mic and kind of was ready to endorse Keith Lee until all of a sudden Goldberg's music hit. Goldberg came on out, had a stare down with McIntyre, and triumphantly challenged him to a match for the WWE Championship at the upcoming Royal Rumble event. So we have a lot to unpack here, gentlemen. My first question, and Nick, I know you've been waiting all day for this. Give us your overall introductory thoughts on both Legends Night and the return of Bill Goldberg.
I've mentioned before already, so there's no sense. If you watch the show, you know my feelings on the returning legends. They do it entirely too much. It becomes pretty obvious and pretty basic who they're bringing out. It's never anybody that you're like, wow, I haven't seen them in a long time. Like, they bring out the Big Show. Like, do we need to see the Big Show? Do we need to see Mark Henry? Do we need to see? It's cool to see Sergeant Slaughter, but he's kind of in the same category of just got, like, we've seen them all a million times. Like, if you're going to bring somebody out different, bring somebody out different. With COVID and stuff like that, I guess it's difficult to get who they want to get. But if there was no COVID, I think it's the same lineup of people. We've seen them all ad nauseum multiple times. It's always cool to see Hulk Hogan. He's a childhood hero of mine, growing up. I enjoy seeing him anytime he's on. But, Ric Flair, seen him a million times. We've seen these guys a million times before. It does nothing for me. To me, it doesn't increase viewership. I know this past week their viewership increased, but there was no Monday Night Football, and that's the reason for that. We'll get into Goldberg. I'll let you guys talk about Legends first, but there's just to just see Bill Goldberg, cool, no problem. To have Bill Goldberg fight in a title match at one of the four main pay-per-views is just absolutely ridiculous. But we'll get into it, I'm sure.
And I know we're going to spend a lot of time probably talking about Goldberg in and of itself. But Fred, what were your thoughts before we even get into Goldberg? Talk to me about your thoughts of Legends Night. How did you think it went overall?
Me personally, I'm a huge fan of the Legends coming back. I just like to see the old faces again and reminisce. If it were up to me, they'd be on the whole show. I thought they used them very little, which in hindsight, was probably the best call. You know, they only did these little backstage segments. You saw them, blah, 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 and that was it. Like I said, I'm the opposite of Nick. I would have had him on all night, flaunted all over. But I think what they did was the right call for the young town, which is what's important. Yeah, but I will agree with Nick. The guys that they brought in, the choices weren't that great. The only one that I thought was like cool was Melina, because the only other time she'd been brought in, Raw Reunion last July in 2019.
But don't call it a Legends night. She's not a legend. Has she ever even won the title? Is she a former champion? Like her, the Boogeyman, like they're not legends. Don't call it Legends night. Call it Reunion.
She is a former Divas champion. I'll throw that out.
Okay, well there you go. But at a time when the Divas Championship at that time went to the sexiest female. It didn't go to
she's won both. She won the Divas and the Women's multiple times. She was in the wrong era. There's a group of them. Her, Beth.
Beth for sure. Yeah.
Even Michelle McCool, she got really talented. They were in the wrong era. Even Mickie James, she had the run with Trish, which was great. But after that, like, if she was around, well, she is around now, but they don't use her. And that was the other point of contention. She was considered a legend, but she's actually still in the active roster, so there was a whole confusion about that. But anyway, it popped a rating. It was something different than the old usual that we see every week. Obviously, that isn't working. So what the hell? I mean, in my eyes, why not? What they're doing isn't any better, so it couldn't hurt.
I thought Raw was the shits on Monday. I'm not going to lie. And sans the main event, which we'll talk about, and I already kind of gave my spoiler, my feeling on it. I thought it was an awesome main event, and I really did think it was. But I think Raw sometimes has an identity crisis, right? And I know we may have touched on this before on the show, and I know the three of us have talked offline definitely about this, but I've said for a while now that SmackDown is a much cleaner show, right? It's clearly become their A show. I mean, there's no question in my mind that even from Vince McMahon down to the lowest person on the totem pole knows that SmackDown is the bread and butter of this company, and they certainly treat it like that. It's not that they're doing it on purpose, but I think the combination of the 3 hours obviously is tough in and of itself, mixed in with the fact that they do some really weird things on Raw, right? And case in point, I mean, the first Raw of 2021 not only kicked off with Hulk Hogan, but he's doing some cheesy bit about, instead of using the iPhone, calling it the H phone. Like, it was really weird in my opinion. And in my opinion, a terrible way to use Hulk Hogan, right? Like, why not kick off the Raw if you're gonna do it with Hulk Hogan? Play the Real American theme song. I know it's the Thunderdome, but it's the pumped up crowd noise, right? You hear the cheers. He comes down the middle of the ring. He flexes. He does his skit, right? He tells people to eat their vitamins and say their prayers, and you kind of go on with the show, right? It kind of sets the stage. But in my opinion, the way that they set the stage this past week on Raw, again, the first Raw of 2021 was just kind of really strange, and it kind of set the precedent of what it was going to be like all night. Because I don't know about you, but from that skit to Randy Orton kind of mocking the Big Show and Mark Henry and kind of threatening them but not doing anything about it, and I'm sure it can't be heard at this point or whatever it is, but it was just really weird in my opinion. And Nick, I'm sure you agree, but Fred, I'll kind of real quickly kick this back to you. Did you feel Raw was kind of odd?
It was. The Hogan thing was weird. My initial thoughts was, okay, they're trying to do something different. The way the shot opened on the close-up of the phone, like, I felt like they were trying to be, like, open the show different, because that's not how Raw would normally open. But it just didn't work, I think the only Hogan segment that I actually thought was good, and I got it, was the one with Drew in the back. Because he's giving Drew the rub, and now Drew's the guy, and they did the posing and all that. So I thought that was okay. The Randy Orton stuff was weird, because I thought, okay, at some point the Legends are going to do something to him, but nothing ever came of it. Mark Henry just sat there and waddled. Big Show was a little more.
Oh, you're referring to the main event of a pay-per-view a few months ago when 50 fucking legends attacked Randy Orton, and we've already seen it 4 months ago.
Right.
We saw it 3 months ago.
And then that also crossed my mind during the night. Like, I was expecting them to do something similar to Clash of Champions when they all throughout the match got involved. Big Show.
And dude, don't forget the week after Clash of Champions, didn't Randy Orton have like night vision goggles and like take out the Big Show? And
yeah, that was weird when they're playing cards in that was weird.
Yeah, Raw was just a complete mess for the first 2.5 hours.
Yeah, it had some like I thought obviously the thing with Cardi B meant was great for them.
Yeah, how about that?
I thought that was good with Tori Wilson saying
accepting that.
That escalated quickly.
Very.
It really
but she
did.
bit it. She bit it. You know, she could have totally ignored it and it wouldn't have been a thing.
Yeah.
She went on.
Yeah.
She was going back and forth, and it would turn into a cool thing for them. So
she sold hard on that one. I don't
she
know.
She did. I mean, if she didn't say anything, it would have been like that's it. But maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I'm just disrespectful to Cardi B. But I think she's too stupid to realize that like it's all a work. Like I think she got like legitimately like offended by the fact that Lacey Evans was. I was just gonna say, yeah, you saw what Lacey said, yeah, and then
because Cardi used some words, right? So
I would never let something paraphrasing that there's no white woman around that would intimidate me or scare me or something. I mean, something stupid. I mean, Bernard Hopkins said the same shit about Joe Calzaghe and got his ass kicked. So stupid.
I mean, listen, it was great publicity for Cardi.
So that was a hit. I thought that was a hit. I thought the Boogeyman is tired. You know, I thought. It was a funny ha pop. Okay, like so it worked for the segment, you know. Dude, I thought that I was really happy to see back, and just like Nick doesn't think she is, but because we never really see her, was Melina. Other than
it's not so. But I agree. Like that's what you want to see. You want to see people you haven't seen in a long time. Now I saw. I don't know. It might be too new of news for you guys to see it, but Carlito was supposed to be on it and said that he's not going to be on it if it's just going to be a 2-minute skit. That's what they wanted him for. He said, I'm off flying across the country for a 2-minute skit, but Melina's fine. Like, show me Melina, show me Boogeyman, but don't call it Legends Night because they're not legends. Either the legends that we haven't seen in a while that are cool and are actually legends, or just have it be a Raw reunion or a wrestling reunion. That's fine.
Right.
Sure.
But
they should have called it that.
Legends Night.
They should. I'm assuming they didn't because that's what they called it last year. Well, now it'll be 2 years ago in July of 19. But that's kind of my point. Stop doing the same. Stop doing the same thing over and over and over again. It's not. It's dumb. I feel like Raw, like you said, Raw. It's obvious SmackDown's the show, but I just feel like every year Raw punts during the NFL football season, not to steal a football phrase, but like they're not beating the NFL. It doesn't matter. The game could be the Jacksonville Jaguars against the Jets. They're not beating the NFL because of all the money. And now with the increase of sports betting and everything plugged to sharp bets and fantasy sets, there's no way that they're going to ever be able to compete with the NFL. So they almost punt in a way. Like now that the NFL is over, you're getting into Rumble season. You got fans like myself who are more or less casual fans tuning in more because you're getting ready for the Rumble. You want to see what's going to happen. You're getting into Mania season. Like this is the fun time. To me, it was at the start of the season was kind of a dud. Well, that's true. They normally what we've been seeing is kind of like they're not going to give you their best stuff now, right? In December, say, or
right
because they're saving it. But I thought that this was going to really be a start of it. And, well, it had some moments. Yeah, overall, it wasn't what it could have been. And my problem is there's obviously a bigger problem because 5-10 years ago, it wouldn't have been as much of an issue. We complain, well, not necessarily all, but a lot of people always complain, and people are always going to complain, right? Even if it's good. But when you really look back on it, 5-10 years ago, the show actually was good. We take for granted what was, and I don't know, maybe in 5 years, I hope not. Maybe it'll even be worse, and we'll wish for Legends Night. But
It's funny you say that because I distinctly remember being in college during the 2003, 2004, like Triple H Evolution era, and all anybody did was bitch and complain about that era. And looking back on that era now, it was fucking great. Like,
it was
they
phenomenal.
compared it to the Attitude Era, which was really great.
Right.
It's the same thing. Like, it's always going to be better in the minds of people 5 years from now. I can't imagine. I'm terrified to think that 5 years from now, WWE right now is going to be better than it is 5 years from now. That's a scary thought. But who knows? Well, we can always have the Big Show come back and Mark Henry come back for the 8,000th time.
Well, maybe by then he actually will be a legend.
Yeah, maybe.
There's no shot that in 10 years from now, that it's worse off because, as sad as it is, in 10 years from now, I don't think Vince McMahon will be running WWE, and Hunter instead will be. And and God willing, right? Vince McMahon will probably run the company until the day he unfortunately passes away. But
his mother's like 100 years old.
That's true. So it certainly can happen. But the day that
he's 75,
the day that Triple H does take over, we could, and no pun intended there, but the day that he does kind of get in charge, it's going to be some really, really great things. But we're gonna spend some good time on Goldberg. But just one last point about Raw that I thought was pretty strange too is if you noticed, all of their secondary champions lost on this past week on Monday Night Raw. Right? Yeah. Charlotte and Asuka lost. The Hurt Business lost. Bobby Lashley lost. Right? These are all non-title matches, but I mean, really, really weird booking, and especially that was weird booking with Shayna Baszler lost to Dana Brooke, right? And no disrespect against someone like Dana Brooke, but come on, Shayna Baszler is supposed to be a lighter version of Ronda Rousey, right? And man,
they don't know what to do with the NXT people. They don't know what to do with the NXT people. There's so
she's
many
not the Shayna
examples
that she was in March. That's the other problem.
Yeah, it's sad. It's truly sad to see.
How is Shayna Baszler not the Brock Lesnar of the female division? Like, how is that not a thing?
It was a layup.
She should have beat Becky at WrestleMania. Especially, I mean, she didn't know she was pregnant at the time. But especially knowing that we would find out the next month,
Right.
Yeah, hindsight is 2020 on that for sure.
Yeah.
No pun intended there.
But I just throw back the one you mentioned, the champions losing. The one other positive moment on Raw, I did enjoy the stuff with Flair and Lacey Evans, and then Flair and Charlotte, like where he accidentally cost her, because he was trying to get inside Lacey Evans' pants or dress. So I did enjoy that. That was fun. I thought that was good use of Flair. I thought he had the best use out of any of them, even though we've seen him over and over. I mean, is Ric Flair. So,
yeah, I think by default, he definitely had the best use of all the legends.
Yeah. I thought. But anyway, that was one other positive note of Raw that I enjoyed. So.
The one last point I'll make, right, and we'll kind of move on because we're going to talk about Goldberg and what happened at the end here, but WWE, right, had the chance now, the first Raw of the year, no competition, as Nick mentioned, against Monday Night Football. How did they lay this type of egg, right? Because SmackDown, if you remember, 2 weeks ago on Christmas Day, they had the NFL game midday, 4:30 p.m., right? Vikings Saints. The minute that game ended, it was a lead-in right to Friday Night SmackDown. And man, oh man, that was a hell of a SmackDown. I remember watching it at my mother-in-law's house with my wife and their family. They weren't paying attention. Of course, I was the only one that was. But man, that was a Friday Night SmackDown, and the rating showed over 4 million people in some capacity checked out that episode. And Raw could have done the same thing, right, with advertising the legends, no competition with Monday Night Football. The first Raw of the new year should be one of the most exciting, and I just don't know how they get it sometimes and they don't get it other times. That'll always be a head scratcher to me. But I want to obviously spend a good amount of time now and talk about the return of Bill Goldberg. I know I set the stage and we talked about the fact that he's going to be challenging Drew McIntyre for the Royal Rumble. And I'm sure this is going to spark some debate here, but Nick, I'll let you give you the floor here. What are your thoughts on Bill Goldberg? And I know you already kind of touched on it, but maybe you can do a little bit of a deep dive. Bill Goldberg challenging Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship at the Royal Rumble. And I'm ready to combat you, my friend, but The floor is yours first.
I think the best way to do this is to give each other uninterrupted time, because I'm going to want to interrupt you guys if you guys are going to defend Bill Goldberg. So I'm just throwing that out there now.
All right.
I'll start. My opening statement will not have any stats. It won't have anything other than the fact that a few weeks ago we talked about the double standard in professional wrestling when it comes to AEW and it comes to WWE. And we talked about Sting, specifically mentioning Sting. And I made the comment that the difference between WWE and AEW is that Sting will come back and help the talent out in a secondary role. He might get involved in a match, but he's going to help in a secondary role. And that's one thing I think AEW does really well, whether it's bringing back Jake the Snake Roberts, bringing back Arn Anderson. You get the nostalgia of guys from your childhood, but it's a taste. It's not the whole meal. And I think with WWE, and I mentioned on that podcast, you can listen back, the difference is that WWE is stupid enough to get a guy like Bill Goldberg and put him in an actual match, a title match, no less, at one of the big pay-per-views. And this was in response to the notion that it could be Roman Reigns against Bill Goldberg for the title at this year's WrestleMania. As if that made any sense at all. It didn't last year. It certainly wouldn't this year. And I hope that they decide not to do this. But what the fuck are they doing? Like, what about Bill Goldberg at this time against Drew McIntyre is appealing to anybody? And just so you know, when you guys defend this garbage, I got a book full of notes ready to come after you. So give me all your stats. Give me all your everything. I promise I'll be listening. I might be writing some things down because I want to make sure I touch on every little thing. But there is no way anybody can sit here in 2021 and tell me that Bill Goldberg makes any sense in a Royal Rumble main event title match, co-main event title match against Drew McIntyre. Explain it. Defend it. Make it make sense to me. Please make it make sense to me.
All right. So, Fred, you want to take this one, my friend, or?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Good fucking luck.
First off, listen, I understand where you're coming from about Goldberg. You know, nobody wants to see him anymore. You know, that's fair. And there are a group of people that do feel that way. I'm sure. Obviously, there are. And maybe it's not the right call. But you know what? Like we just alluded to, what they're doing isn't working. So they're going to utilize a name that was huge during wrestling's biggest time period. More people know Goldberg than say it should have been Keith Lee versus Drew at the Rumble. Yeah, sure, that would have been cool. And maybe in a couple of years, it would be great. But right now, nobody gives a shit about Keith Lee facing Drew McIntyre for the title at the Rumble. He's already had an 8-month feud with Randy Orton. He faced AJ Styles at TLC. They could have had another match at the Rumble, sure, and that would have been cool too. But there really was nobody for Drew to face at the Rumble, at least a big name value right now. So do I think, now with that being said, do I think Goldberg should beat Drew for the title? No, I don't. I don't think Bill Goldberg should have beat The Fiend at Super Showdown last year. The only reason he did was to get the title on him to face Roman at WrestleMania, which I did want to see, and I would still like to see again this year. I just think Goldberg versus Reigns has marquee value to it. Spear versus Spear, I just dig it. It doesn't have to be a long match, short match, but whatever. But I will say this. We were talking about how Raw wasn't that good. I was laying in bed watching Raw. When his music hit, I jumped out of my fucking bed. I didn't jump out of shit the whole 3 hours except for when I heard his music hit. And I stood up and I watched that entire segment. It was the only thing that got me excited, and it felt like years ago to me. I was like watching, like, oh shit. I didn't feel like that at all for 3 hours, except that one moment. So that tells you something. The other thing, his promo was weird. I will say this. The reason being they were cut short on time. He wasn't supposed to come out right then. Drew was supposed to cut a promo And I don't know what it was going to be, but it was going to be in regards to a respect thing. I don't know if he was going to down talk the legends. I don't see that Drew doing that unless they were going to do like a heel thing. But Goldberg said, go, go, go. And so the promo didn't make sense because he talked about him not having respect for the legends when Drew never said or did anything to allude to that. So
Right.
I will give you, because I even said, I'm trying to think back, like, wait, did Drew say something I missed? What did Drew do? I don't remember. He didn't say or do anything. But that was what Bill was supposed to say. That was supposed to be the start of it. People were hoping, apparently backstage, that he would like improvise and like, say something else, but he didn't. Maybe he didn't have enough time to think of saying anything else, or thought maybe he would get yelled at if he said something. Because WWE is so strict with their damn scripts. Maybe he thought, I better not go off, whatever. So the build up to it was weird. Now, had there not been time issues, I think it would have made more sense. Or, if Goldberg came out and did say something else, like, you've beaten a lot of people, but you haven't beat this legend and shit like that, whatever. But I think it's going to get more people to tune into the Rumble because Goldberg is on the card for people that are fair weather fans than if he wasn't. It's just business. The wrestling fans that watch every week, that are on the internet, they don't want to see Goldberg. But the guy that hasn't watched in a couple years or only watches during WrestleMania season find, oh shit, Goldberg's on the fucking card. I'm gonna fucking check this out. Okay, you're an exception, but I mean real fair weather, like they don't even know what's going on the show, that don't watch at all. But if they hear it's Goldberg's wrestling, yo, I gotta see Goldberg. I haven't seen that motherfucker in years. Like, I know to you because you're somewhat avid fan. You don't want to see that, but me, I like seeing the older guys compete. As much as I love Keith Lee, him versus Drew McIntyre at the Rumble would do nothing for me. There's nobody else on the roster, and that's part of WWE's problem. There's nobody on that roster that is worthy of a title shot that makes it a marquee match for the Royal Rumble.
I'm going to take a different approach on that.
Sorry, yeah.
So with me, right, and Nick and I have talked about this offline, so he knows where I'm going to go with this, is I'd rather see Goldberg face Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship in the semi-main event, which we all know, whether it's the last match or not, the Royal Rumble match is the marquee match of that pay-per-view, than Goldberg versus Roman Reigns in the true main event of WrestleMania. Because if they were to fight at WrestleMania, and if they do fight at WrestleMania, it will 100% be the true main event of that year's WrestleMania. So I'd rather see Goldberg take on Drew McIntyre, and I'll tell you why, right? Because if he takes on Roman Reigns, I know Roman's going to win. I know Roman's going to retain the title because Roman is their absolute true superstar. With Drew McIntyre, I truly believe Drew McIntyre is going to win. He's going to retain the WWE Championship. They're going to use it to put a nice notch on the title reign of Drew McIntyre. But part of the reason that Nick Fiorentino is pissed off right now is because there is some doubt in his mind that Goldberg will become WWE Champion in 2021. Whereas if he faced Roman Reigns for the Universal title at WrestleMania, we know for sure Roman Reigns would retain that belt. So the conclusion of this is the fact that this match is must-see in two ways. One, you're going to watch it anyway because of the Royal Rumble match, right? And the Royal Rumble is probably most wrestling fans' most fun pay-per-view, maybe besides WrestleMania. And number two, there's some doubt in your mind, and you're going to be rooting for Drew McIntyre because there are so many fans out there that absolutely hate Bill Goldberg, and I truly believe that's what Vince McMahon is going for. He's going for it to make Drew McIntyre give him a critical win against a legend like Bill Goldberg that is absolutely despised by the IWC, the Internet Wrestling Community. In addition to that, the last point I'll make before Nick, I'll give you the chance to give a rebuttal here. I truly believe, and I watch Dynamite every single week on Wednesdays as well too, I truly believe there is not much of a difference between Goldberg coming up, facing Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship, than watching Sting every single Wednesday for the last 4 straight weeks now, maybe 5 straight weeks. He comes out the same exact way every single week. The lights go out, the snow comes down, Tony Schiavone goes, "It's Sting!" And yeah, that was awesome the first night. I remember texting you both about it. 4 weeks later, it's the exact same thing. And I truly believe Sting is going to be fighting for the AEW Championship before he sails off into his career. Whether he wins it or not, it's a terrible move, so I hope not. But to me, there's no difference between the way that WWE uses Bill Goldberg versus the way that AEW uses Sting. Nick?
How is there no way that you see a difference between the way Sting comes out in a cameo role versus Bill Goldberg fighting for a major title? How is there no difference to you?
Because
you can't say that it's because you think he's going to fight for a title. If Sting fights for the AEW title, I'll sit there and say that that's dumb too. It doesn't make any sense for him to fight for the title. Here's the deal, and I'll go back. You mentioned Bill Goldberg being despised by the internet wrestling community, and he is. But do you know why? Because he wasn't in 2016 and 17 with this feud with Brock Lesnar. He was cheered by me and everybody. You can listen to it. Those Goldberg chants weren't pumped in. They were legitimate. You can't count the WrestleMania crowd because they're mostly European people coming in who just want to be a part of the show and will cheer and boo whatever. And it doesn't make any sense. He was legitimately cheered because that storyline made sense. Now we're fast forwarding years later. Must-see TV. Bill Goldberg is must-see TV. Not only is he not must-see TV anymore, but the last matches that he's had haven't been great matches. You mentioned a pattern of, you said that there's a chance of fear in me that I think Drew McIntyre is going to lose the title to Bill Goldberg. Well, that's because WWE has a pattern of stupid decision making. And one thing I think they're not so stupid that they would make a terrible, terrible decision is there's no way they would ever have Bill Goldberg beat Roman Reigns, the hottest thing in all of professional wrestling. I'll be the first person to admit that they would ever be that stupid. There's just no way. And you mentioned that we haven't seen Bill Goldberg in years, and that's why casual fans will tune in. It hasn't even been a year. He fought in 2020 at WrestleMania 36 in a 2-minute and 13-second match against Braun Strowman. Did anybody think that stole the show in that event? No. In 2020, he had a second match. This was in the Super Showdown, a 2-minute and 59-second match against The Fiend, where he beat The Fiend for the title. Does anybody think that was a show-stealing match? No. Then you go back to 2019 when he fought Dolph Ziggler in 1 minute and 50 seconds. He needed that match because of the match that he had earlier in 2019 against The Undertaker when he lost to The Undertaker in 8 minutes and 35 seconds in what would be the worst wrestling match of all time. And when you talk about, well, he needed the win, he certainly did against Dolph Ziggler. But do you think they needed Dolph Ziggler versus Bill Goldberg in that SummerSlam in 2019? No, they didn't need it. And do you know why they didn't need it? Because in 2018, SummerSlam did 29,900 buys, not counting the people that tune in on the network. Actual people who spent money on pay-per-view to watch that show. Do you know how many people bought it in 2019 to watch Bill Goldberg beat Dolph Ziggler in 1 minute and 50 seconds? 19,600 people. 10,000 people less than what it was the year before. He doesn't draw money. If you want to see the spear versus spear, go get Edge. Edge can be a bad guy, and he can fight Drew McIntyre in a match that makes sense and would actually be a good match. Nobody wants to see Bill Goldberg, who's fought in 18 minutes worth of matches over the last 2 years, fight anybody. He doesn't look good anymore. He looks old. He looked old. And that promo was awful. I'm not even gonna hold it against him. I'm not gonna hold that against him because what Fred said makes total sense. They ran out of time. Drew McIntyre has not done a disrespectful thing in an entire year of winning the title. So he's not disrespecting any legend. They're both faces. Why does this match need to take place? The only thing I'll say is if they're going to do it, this is the perfect place to do it. because you have 2 Royal Rumble matches that are each going to go on for an hour, and Bill Goldberg is going to give Drew McIntyre a 7-minute match. The over-under, 7 minutes. Are you really going to bet the over on that match? 7 minutes? He hasn't had a 7-minute match in 2 years. And if you want to have a quick match, have it be something that makes sense. Bring Brock Lesnar back. He's more legitimate. Does anybody think that Brock Lesnar couldn't legitimately beat up everybody on the Raw roster? He's as real as it gets. Don't give me old geriatric Bill Goldberg in this stage. Nobody wants to see him. Give me Brock Lesnar. That makes sense. He beat him for the title less than a year ago. Give me Brock Lesnar versus Drew McIntyre. They could have a 12-minute match. It would be great. Don't give me, because Brock Lesnar is not going to fight in the main event. He's going to have a match at WrestleMania probably, but it's not going to be for the main event. So losing to Drew McIntyre is perfect. It would legitimize Drew McIntyre once again, make him the badass. If you want fans to cheer Drew McIntyre and boo the other guy, nobody's going to want to see Brock Lesnar beat him for the title. We've seen it ad nauseum, just to lose it at WrestleMania probably. It makes no sense. That's the problem I have with Bill Goldberg. It makes no sense. Why? Because on a radio interview, he said, I think I could beat Roman Reigns. I think I should fight Roman Reigns. Nobody wants to see you anymore, Bill Goldberg. Go be Keith Lee's manager or something like that and legitimize Keith Lee that way. Nobody wants to see Brock Lesnar fight anymore in 2021. It's over.
Yeah, all right. I won't comment on the whole thing. I will.
I got one more thing, because you mentioned one more thing, and then I'm done. One more thing. You mentioned that WWE is making money hand over fist. That's what you text me. Hand over fist, they're making money. Oh, well, WrestleMania, Braun Strowman and Braun Strowman and Bill Goldberg. That WrestleMania did 967 million views over the course of everything. It was a global pandemic. At the end of the day, it was a 20% increase over the year before during a pandemic. 20% isn't a huge increase in the grand scheme of things. When you say 967 million views, almost 1 billion views, that's a jaw-dropping number. But when you hear that it's 20% more, to me, that's just a product of COVID-19. And at that point, nobody had anything to watch. People were betting on Korean baseball. There was nothing. So you give me this sport and you give me this sports entertainment that had a lot of great matches on the card. But one of those matches was certainly not the 2 minutes and 13 seconds of Bill Goldberg losing to Braun Strowman.
Yeah, so the part I'll say is first of all, you can't count pay-per-view buys with SummerSlam when the network's been around for 6 years, 7 years at this point. Pay-per-view buys no longer mean anything, and they stop meaning something after 2013, right, Fred? I know Fred will agree with that. So
yeah.
So perfect. So perfect. If that's the case, and I agree with you, then your comment they're making money hand over fist means what? What's your proof that they're making money hand over fist? Because people are buying the network. Do you actually think people buy the network to watch Bill Goldberg fight in a match? Do you think anybody's going to buy the Royal Rumble to watch Bill Goldberg? Do you honestly think that?
Whether that's the case or not, I'm not going to comment on that. What I am going to comment is I know they are making money hand over fist. I mean, when you get $1 billion,
not much more money than they did the year before. They made just under $1 billion. Do you think they made $1 billion last year? They'd have to do $320 million in quarter four to eclipse $1 billion. I don't think they did that. Not with the product that we've seen over the last 3 months.
Dude,
they're probably better now that Goldberg's back.
Yeah, probably, right?
It's also a pandemic. They're not traveling, right? There's no live ticket sales. They're not getting concessions. They're barely getting merchandise. I mean, they made a significant amount of money this year, and even before the pandemic, the minute they signed that deal with Fox, they made a significant amount of money. But money aside, right, the whole thing is around Bill Goldberg. Again, I truly think the semi-main event of the Royal Rumble is a better place to put in Bill Goldberg than the actual main event at WrestleMania.
Oh, I would agree with that.
I think the fact that you don't know if he's going to beat or lose to Drew, everyone's praying he's going to lose, obviously, but the fact that there's doubt in people's minds, myself included, I wouldn't be shocked if Bill Goldberg is the WWE champion, right?
If that fucking happens, there's no way they would have the balls to do that.
But bro, you're the exact type of person that Vince McMahon is catering to right now. He's thinking of you, saying, "Oh, I can't wait for someone like this man to tune in to see if Bill Goldberg defeats Drew McIntyre or not." Fred, I know you've been quiet for a bit. I'll let you say some additional comments on the whole McIntyre-Goldberg feud if you got anything else.
Yeah, no, listen, I'm not going to sit here and tell you, Goldberg coming back is going to be like all these great matches. That's not what Goldberg sells.
Right.
Goldberg sells, his name value, a presence, a star attraction. He's an attraction.
Box office.
He's box office. You're not watching him to see a 5-star classic. When Edge came back, it was different, right? Edge will put on 5-star classics. Edge versus Reigns would be an amazing match. It's one that I hope we do get to see. But I will say this, and this may catch some heat. And I'm an Edge fan, and I love Edge more than I do Goldberg. So I'm going to preface it with that. But if you ask me, and you put on a WrestleMania poster, Goldberg versus Roman Reigns, spear versus spear, and on another poster, you put Edge versus Roman Reigns, spear versus spear, I don't care.
Yeah.
Anywhere in the world, Goldberg versus Reigns has more box office value. And that has nothing to do against Edge. I love Edge. Edge and Reigns would be a far better match.
Fred, I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second just to clarify your point. The Tuesday morning, the day after Raw, my cousin who doesn't watch wrestling texted me, "I heard Bill Goldberg's back." That's all I have to say.
Did he watch?
I don't know if he watched, but he knew.
So why don't you ask him? Ask him if he watched. Ask him if that made him want to tune in. And since you think that Vince McMahon is catering to me,
that's not the
here,
point.
I just tweeted Vince McMahon since he's catering to me. Vince McMahon, hey Vince, first time, long time. No one wants to see Bill Goldberg in 2021. Watch Mark's side of the ring to find out why.
I love it.
Well, that's good.
Go ahead.
Since he's catering to me, I would like to explain to him why nobody wants to see.
I love the plot.
Again, I'm not going to die on this horse that, Goldberg's never been my favorite wrestler. I'm not trying to defend. Now, if you wanted to bad talk the goddamn good name of The Undertaker, we'd have a problem. But Goldberg,
I would rather see The Undertaker come back and fight Drew McIntyre.
Well, of course you would anyway.
Me too.
I would. Are you kidding me? And I really think, I'm not going to get on to that kick, but I think Taker and Drew would be an amazing match. I think Taker could put on a good one with Drew. I think Drew could really work with Taker. But that's another story for another day. But what I'm saying is, it's not like I'm this huge Goldberg fan that I'm defending him. But I am a product of the Attitude Era. Goldberg was one of the biggest stars of the Attitude Era. Ironically, when I actually started watching wrestling, I watched WCW, not WWE, for a couple of months. And it was during the time that him and DDP were feuding. And I was actually more of a DDP fan than Goldberg. I wanted DDP to win against Goldberg at Halloween Havoc, but neither here nor there. So what the point I'm trying to make is that I'm not here saying I'm this huge Goldberg mark and all this and that, but I am a mark for nostalgia and I am a mark for big name value.
Yeah.
I just want to paint a picture for you guys real quick. And then are we going to move on or do you guys have more?
Of course.
Okay. I want you guys to close your eyes for a minute. Close your eyes.
All right.
All right. You're closing your eyes.
Wait. I have a vision.
Goldberg.
Goldberg. It's the Rumble. Oh my, a spear. Oh, hook in the leg. Drew is down. 1, 2, 3. Goldberg's the champion. Well, oh my, I can go to bed happy now.
I bet you would go to bed happy then.
I'm sorry, I had to. Okay, eyes are shut.
A random legend comes out. Let's make it Carlito. Carlito wanted to have a match. Let's have Carlito have
I was looking forward to seeing Carlito. I'm not going to lie.
Carlito, Fred, you don't have to actually close your eyes. Miguel's eyes aren't closed. So Carlito comes out.
I was just sleeping.
Gets on the mic and says, I haven't been in a ring in this many years, and it feels pretty damn good. I want an open challenge against any challenger that comes out. Out comes Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre says, I'll have a match with you. Beats him in 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Maybe Carlito can have a decent match. He was never that terrible of a wrestler. Gets on the mic and says, you legends come out here and you try to steal my show. I'm the champion. Goldberg's music hits. Goldberg comes out to the ring, cuts the promo that everybody thinks he's going to cut, saying you're being disrespectful to the legends. So I'm here to introduce to you your challenger at the Royal Rumble. Keith Lee comes out. You get that match that you had on Monday Night Raw at the Royal Rumble. You give Keith Lee, an NXT star potentially, a platform to be great on a stage when everybody is going to watch, because it is the Royal Rumble, a match where everybody wants to see. There's betting value on it. Now, instead of watching Bill Goldberg wrestle a 7-minute match where everybody's going to talk about how shitty he looks and how shitty that match is because he's not going to win, you have Keith Lee on a stage with a million eyes get the chance that he deserves, because that match was not seen by the people that it deserves to be seen by. And you build Keith Lee into this mega star going into WrestleMania season. What's so hard about that? Why is that difficult for them to do?
You know what the problem with it is? So now then people would complain that Keith Lee and Drew McIntyre, we already saw it on Raw. Now they're doing it again at the Rumble?
Well, they wouldn't, but we didn't see it on Raw at this point, where that match wouldn't have existed.
Keith versus Drew at the Rumble or any pay-per-view down the road, yes, I can see that will happen. But I don't think, and I love Keith Lee, but he's not at a position to be warranted a title match on a major pay-per-view like the Royal Rumble.
But he should, but you're right. But you're right, and that's the problem. He beats Randy Orton in convincing fashion in his first pay-per-view match,
right,
and then they bring him out in a fucking skirt and have him look like an asshole. Like, you had this legitimate guy. I'm not an NXT fan. We all know that. But I'm not an NXT fan because I like, when they come up, I like to be surprised. Like, you had me, the casual fan, hook, line, and sinker on Keith Lee. But you send him down to the training center because you don't like the way he wrestles, and you put him through that. And he just ruins people time and time again.
That whole thing got blown out of proportion. They brought some guys down to the PC to get extra training, and it wasn't that he wasn't doing good. It was to give him more seasoning, because it makes perfect sense. These guys used to be on the road 4 or 5 days out of the week. They'd work house shows, and that's where they would get seasoned, and that's where they would try different things, and they would learn on the job. They don't have that. All they do now is see. So that's another story. That them going down to the PC to do it makes perfect sense, and honestly, the whole roster should be doing it, because they're working once a week now.
CM Punk made a point in his podcast that's now famous with Colt Cabana, and I don't know the exact phrase he used or the quote he used, but it had something to do with minor league hockey players need Stanley Cup professional hockey experience to be as good as they can be. You had an opportunity to give your minor league hockey player a platform to go out and get the seasoning that he deserves in a main stage in front of a ton of eyes. See what you got, kid. Let's go out there and do it.
Yeah.
And they failed for Bill Goldberg versus Drew McIntyre. They sold out their future for Miguel's cousin to tune in and say, hey, did you hear Bill Goldberg's back? It just makes no sense to me.
We're gonna move on to our last topic here, but the last point I'll make on this is let's wait and see. I have a good feeling McIntyre and Goldberg will be one of Goldberg's best matches since coming back in 2016 against.
Doesn't say much.
Let's not forget here that Goldberg did sign a 3-year deal, 2 matches per year. So there's a reason he's wrestling. He has a deal, a contract in place.
I don't think Nick's disputing that, though. I think Nick just doesn't want to see him at all. So
I just outlined, and listen, if you're watching this show and you enjoy the content and you enjoy everything, like, tweet me and tell me I'm wrong. Like, if I just outlined an entire scenario, perfect booking that gets Keith Lee involved in a higher stage, but also gets Bill Goldberg involved, I think that would have been cool. I have no problem with Bill Goldberg.
Cool, but does anybody give a shit about Keith Lee versus Drew at the Rumble? No, nobody. I mean, right.
But do you know why nobody cares? because he's not
He hasn't
getting a
been-
shot. Bill
he hasn't-
Goldberg is.
Right. He hasn't been put in a position to care, but I don't know.
This is the last time I'm doing the show. Good night.
I'm biased because I'm a fan of the Legend. So,
I like the Legends too, man. I just want to see them not in matches.
like, when people bitched about Rock coming back, like, he was the reason I flew all the way to Miami was because of him.
Well, the Rock's in.
I was there with you, not with you, but I was there with you.
Right. So, I mean, like, people bitched about that. And then when it happened again the next year, people bitched about that.
I think nobody wanted to see John Cena beat him. That's the problem.
Yeah, that was true. But let's wait and see. It remains to be seen how Goldberg does against McIntyre. I want to move on. We're going to move on to our final topic, which is over the last couple of weeks. I know we took last week off for the holidays, but an unfortunate situation happened, and I hate to end the show on a sad note, but there is some light to this, and that's the fact that they did announce right before New Year's Eve that Mr. Brodie Lee, a.k.a. Luke Harper in WWE, did pass away after having some unfortunate, I believe it was a lung issue, and he died at the age, I think, of only 41 years old. Of course, as sad as that was, what was remarkable, and honestly, it was really, really encouraging, and it was really kind of therapeutic to read, is the incredible outpour that this man had in the wrestling community, from his colleagues in WWE to his colleagues in AEW to people in Ring of Honor and the Impact. The entire wrestling community really came together here to share just how great of a man it sounded like that the man, John Huber, a.k.a. Brodie Lee, a.k.a. Luke Harper, was. Did you guys get a chance to watch the Dynamite show with him last week?
I did.
Check it out? Okay. And what were your thoughts on it overall,
No, I thought they put on a really good show. I thought the way they did it was excellent. Between opening with which I'm sure they got from WWE, like doing all the guys on the, entranceway and doing the 10 bell salute. I mean, we've seen that a million times, unfortunately, in WWE. And then I thought it was cool that I wasn't very familiar with the Dark Order because I don't really watch AEW like that, but I knew of them and he was the leader and all that. But I thought it was cool how the Dark Order, each member had a match throughout the whole night. I thought that was a nice little tie-in. And, of course, like the back interviews I thought were cool. Like, it was not cool, but nice. Like, with Moxley, and I think Jericho did one, and I forget which guy from the Revival did one, Dash or Dawson, but one of them did one. But anyway, and then all culminating to the end, they had that video package and then his boots in the ring, and they gave Brodie Lee Jr. the AEW TNT title. I thought that was really nice, and I thought it was really cool that the video package actually had not WWE footage, but like photos from WWE, like with WWE guys like him and Bray. I mean, you had to, right? I mean,
he was there for so many years in WWE.
I mean, really, his career was really in WWE. He was only in AEW, what, 8 months?
Yeah.
You know? I mean, he spent 8 years in WWE, you know what I mean? So all his friends and, he made his name in WWE, had a bigger role in AEW, no doubt. And I think he could have. It's unfortunate. I think he could have had a huge run in WWE, but Vince just didn't see him in that light, unfortunately. But he proved, obviously, in AEW that he could be a main event player.
Nick, I want to ask you.
Sad.
This is the first time that an active wrestler of this magnitude has passed away. We won't mention Chris Benoit, but really since Eddie Guerrero, right? And
yes, since an active competitor signed to a major company,
and it was remarkable.
Benoit, Eddie was the last one.
It's remarkable to see because the last time it happened, social media really wasn't a thing like it is today. But man, I mean, literally, not one person. And I'm not surprised, but obviously we don't know the guy personally. I kind of met him once. And he was really nice when I met him, but not one person had a negative thing to say about this guy. Nick, what do you think about that? Nick, did you?
Yeah, I don't think anybody had anything negative to say about him because I don't think there is anything negative to say about him. I mean, I think AEW did a nice job with their tribute as well. I think that, the whole -1 or -1 with his son was cool. Getting him involved in the match was cool. They mentioned on the telecast that his son got to handpick the main event. I don't know if that's true or not, but I can't imagine AEW wouldn't have done that. It just sounds like an AEW thing to do. So I would have to believe that was the case, and I think that was really cool. Let him pick the match with his favorite wrestlers, and I think that they knocked it out of the park. I know there was some feedback, and even, truth be told, myself included, that were disappointed in the WWE version. But after watching AEW's, I think that the wrestling community is very close, and you even see things like last night Snoop Dogg did his frog splash, that horrible frog splash, and Sasha Banks tweets about it. I just think that it's different than it was when it was WCW versus WWE, and they're all very close. And I think that the right thing to do for WWE was to let AEW have the first tribute show. Based on timing, it was difficult for them to do that because obviously their show was first, and they caught a lot of flack for that, and I don't think that that's accurate. The only thing I'll knock WWE for is that when they did their video package of superstars kind of talking about Luke Harper, Brodie Lee, they picked guys that even one of them was like, yeah, I would have liked to have known him better. Well, then you shouldn't be on the video. Like, can we get guys that actually feuded with him? Can we get the Usos? Can we get the whole New Day, not just Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston? Can we get Seth Rollins, who feuded against him? Can we get Bray Wyatt? Where's Bray Wyatt? Can we get these guys together? I understand the
character. Yeah.
I understand, but can we get guys that actually had an impact on his character, talking about him, not just a bunch of people that you just want to put on for some weird reason? That'd be the only thing, the only critique. But it's not about critiquing who mourned a deceased wrestler better. It's about remembering that deceased wrestler who was super talented and I think had a bright future.
Yeah, and the last point I'll make on this, and we don't usually plug other podcasts on here, but if you guys haven't checked out Jericho's podcast on it, there's over a 2-hour episode on the tribute of Brodie Lee, and he's had a lot of the AEW guys sharing their fondest memories of Brodie. So obviously it's somebody that'll certainly be missed within the wrestling community. But that pretty much wraps it up for our show today. I know we spent a lot of time talking about legends and Bill Goldberg, and this was a really fun, mostly episode to kind of do debate. I look forward to having more and more conversations around this as we approach the Royal Rumble season. We're still a couple weeks away from the Royal Rumble, but we appreciate everyone tuning in as always. Obviously we're looking forward to some really exciting things in 2021 for this show, for Mark Side of the Ring. As always, feel free, please give us a follow on social media. You can find us on Instagram at True Exact Radio. You can watch our show on the True Exact Radio platform, which is on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, the podcast app on iPhones. So many different ways for us to be seen in your homes or on your phones. So we appreciate your time today, guys. Looks like Nick may want to say one more thing before we kind of sign off for the night.
One more shameless plug, but before we do that, it was a fun show, and I appreciate you guys and your banter. I had forewarned you all week that I was going to come at you, and you guys defended Bill Goldberg pretty well. But I'll say this. This is, for the most part, what should be an interactive show. So you listen to our debates. If you agree with me, hop on Twitter and let us know you agree with me. If you agree with Fred and Miguel, hop on and let us know that too. But let us know what you think. Am I right or are they right? One shameless plug: on Saturday at 12 p.m. leading into the 1 p.m. playoff game, myself, Sir, and Tim from Sharp Bets and Fantasy Sets are going to be on Twitch. More to come on that, but if you follow us at SBFS Show, we're going to lead into any prop bets, anything like that going into the 1 p.m. games, who we bet, over-unders, and all that stuff. So if you're into making money that you can use in Miguel's Royal Rumble pool, be sure to tune in at 12 p.m. on Twitch, and more info to follow. But it should be a fun show and our first time on Twitch.
Yeah, well, we're really excited for that, Nick. Obviously, part of the True Exact family as well. You're doing your thing, killing over there with sharp bets and fantasy sets, my friend. But guys, thanks so much for today, and I look forward to talking next week. Take care.
Bye, guys.